One of Ghana's bankable stars, Kojo Nkansa, aka Lil Win, is set to portray one of Africa's illustrious son, Ibrahim Traore, in his upcoming film, Ibrahim Traore, The Last African Hero. Now, a number of fans of his have criticized him, and others have wholeheartedly accepted this move on this new film. We'll be taking a look at an article that details a little bit of this criticism and perhaps why that is the case. And then moving on from one actor in Black Star films in Ghana straight to the US in Hollywood is the veteran actor and legendary director Clint Eastwood. And he has said in an interview that he granted that he's not slowing down anytime soon, neither is he retiring. So we'll be expecting more films from him than ever before. This and more right here on the Film Mandate on YouTube. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Film Mandate, and where we bring to you stories both from the African front and the international scene. I am Papa Otu, and thank you so much for joining me for this very episode of the Film Mandate, episode 53. So, there was a story that broke a while ago, and it went under the radar. I'll be honest, I actually didn't see it till I saw an article just yesterday, and I was reading about it, and it was quite fascinating. And this has to do with Ghana's one of Ghana's bankable stars or actors, and that is Lil Win, who actually hails from Ashanti region in Ghana. For those who are not really familiar, he hails from the Ashanti region in Ghana. That is in the creating a lot of films, and he's been doing films for over a decade, close to 2 decades, or perhaps even more. And he's mostly known for being pulling out such comedic acting in all his films that he does. But recently, he's been making waves because of the portrayal of the Burkina Faso president, His Excellency Ibrahim Traore, in his upcoming film titled Ibrahim Traore, The Last African Hero. And as much as a lot of people have praised his efforts in portraying the president of Burkina Faso, so have others also criticized him. And he himself, in an interview that he granted one content creator with his channel called Shiny Creations, spoke about some of the challenges he's going through or he's facing and why he's so adamant and determined to see it through. But I saw this article on Modern Ghana, and I thought I would rather delve a little bit into it. And it says that telling African military stories isn't glorification of coup. Lil Wayne's team responds to backlash on new Ibrahim Traore movie. So let's read it further. Weezy Empire Films production has responded to growing criticism over Kojo Nkansa Lil Wayne's new movie project, defending the comic actor's right to tell serious stories. The film, titled Ibrahim Traore, The Last African Hero, seeks to portray the leadership style of Burkina Faso's military junta leader, Ibrahim Traore. But the move has sparked backlash from some quarters, including entertainment critic Nana Ziga, who accused Lil Wayne of glorifying gun culture and military rule, something he believes sends the wrong message. In a statement issued on Tuesday, June 3rd or June 3, Lil Wayne's management dismissed the concerns and said the film is not intended to promote violence or military takeovers. The team also addressed Nana Ziga's claim that Lil Wayne should focus only on Ghanaian stories and described his comments as narrow-minded. My senior brother Nana Ziga is saying Lil Wayne should not focus on Ibrahim Traore, calling him a terrorist and insisting he should only tell stories from Ghana. Criticizing Lil Wayne for making a war coup themed movie ignores global film history. First of all, storytelling through film doesn't always mean glorification. History, whether controversial or heroic, is still history, the statements explain. They also observe that some people believe Lil Wayne is not the right person to tell such a story simply because he's known for comedy and urged a shift away from that mindset. The fact that he is a comedian does not disqualify him from telling serious stories. In fact, if comedy is the vessel through which this story can be told and understood by the masses, then so be it. The statement emphasized. And so, in your short is the letterhead where they had a press release in response to Nana Ziger's or Zyger's criticism of Lil Wayne and his production. So yeah, it is quite an interesting article coming up, particularly looking at the fact that the the issue of Burkina Faso's situation is quite fresh in the world's view or limelight as it is right now. And as a critic from Nana Ziga, I mean, I can understand where he might be coming from in terms of glorifying coup or violence or whatever that may be. Um, I could understand perhaps his point of view, seeing that even in Africa, Ghana not being an exception, we've experienced a number of coups, and it has not really augured well for most people who lived in that era, let alone the nations that experienced it, which caused a lot of economic challenges for those countries. But beyond that, I think perhaps he may not have all the facts to perhaps draw the conclusion in terms of glorifying the film, I mean, accusing Lil Wayne and his team of glorifying perhaps a coup or gun violence. And so perhaps there is the need for him to have the opportunity to watch the film in its entirety and be able to offer perhaps criticism in that tangents if perhaps that's what is portrayed in the film. But albeit I can understand both sides, and it looks like Lil Wayne's team also handled themselves very well, emphasizing the fact that history is history and definitely has to be told. And even if through the medium of comedy, it can, or actually, if the people who are going to watch the film are going to understand and what is happening, and if it's going to be through the medium of comedy or the genre of comedy through film, then so be it. And I can understand all those fronts, but care ought to be taken so that it doesn't end up becoming a spoof of perhaps what is happening in Burkina Faso, which is causing a ripple effect throughout the entire Africa. On one front, I clearly understand what the VZ team is saying because um, in in the world over, an actor is an actor. Yes, maybe an actor's strength may be leaning towards more of comedy, and in the minds of people who are fans of that actor, there's a likelihood to think that all he can do or she can do is just comedy. But beyond that, there is also the fact that the person is an actor, and a good actor should be able to portray whatever role he or she is given, unless perhaps the person is not clear cut for that. But an actor is more or less like a chameleon, being able to take upon personas or roles that that suit a particular story. So regardless, on that front of the fact that people assume that he's not well suited for this role and think that because he's a comedian he can't portray such, and that I think it's not perhaps the right analysis of the situation. because there have been actors in Hollywood. An example is Jim Carrey, who is known to be sometimes a goofy comedian portraying very funny characters on screen. However, the same Jim Carrey portrayed a character on screen that had nothing to do with comedy, and it was very, very serious. And that is I'm actually blacking out on the name, but he starred opposite the lady in Titanic, um, Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet, and it was so powerful that there wasn't the need for. I mean, people didn't people watched the film, and at the end of it didn't have that mind of Jim Carrey being a comedian and therefore can't portray a serious, faced actor in that film, and he did exceptionally well. So on that front, I think that's actually not accurate. But on the front of glorifying of cool, just as I've explained earlier, I think the film ought to be watched in its entirety, or perhaps a preview of aspects of the film, or perhaps it's possible that perhaps Nana Ziga might have gotten the script and might have read it and think that is the case. So if that's I don't have the facts to prove it, but if that's the case, then perhaps he knows what he's standing on to criticize Lil Wayne on the issue of glorifying cool and all that. And I would indeed say that I'm not really in support of that to glorify violence, but sometimes in telling story, perhaps if that is what is needed to capture what is in the script, provided it doesn't glorify violence, then perhaps that is at the prerogative of the director. So in that front, it may be challenging because Africans have experienced coup severally on in different countries on the continent, and it has not been really, really pleasant. But beyond that, I can also understand why perhaps our stories ought to be told, regardless of whether it's cool or whichever way, because that is sometimes some of the best way or medium that people can also learn from. So I clearly can understand what Lil Wayne's team were arguing about. But on another front too, I could see how daring the team of Lil Wayne and Lil Wayne himself are in wanting to take on stories that perhaps is so sensitive to touch at the moment. My only concern, just as I said earlier, is that I just hope that it doesn't end up being a spoof of the actual situation happening in Burkina Faso, and also in the person of Ibrahim Traore. And I'm saying this based on the fact that there's been histories of films that have been done inspired by real life situations in the country that ended up becoming spoofs of the entire situation, and it became just fun, and sometimes even became a mockery of the situation itself. And that is where personally my concern lies, that the film that they are telling, just as they said in the article, if it's meant to be serious, then I hope that it will be taken as such. It will be treated with such seriousness needed to tell the story. But my only gripe of the whole issue would be that in seeing the film, if it ends up being a spoof of the situation, perhaps making mockery of what is happening in Burkina Faso, that is where I will be a little saddened about it, because there's something, a wave of change sweeping the Sahel region, and regardless of what people's opinion may be, um, obviously good things are being done in the country of Burkina Faso, and the world over. It's seeing the change in real time as to what is happening. So to perhaps do a movie which may be counterproductive to what is happening there may actually not augur well for the Lil Wayne team themselves, and even the image of Africa as a whole. But I'm trusting and hoping that, just as they said, their portrayal is going to be very serious, and even if there's going to have elements of comedy in it, it should not overshadow the core message of trying to perhaps let people know about the leadership style of Ibrahim Traore, just as they stated in the article. So that is where my concern is. My concern is that if they decide to take it serious, then they should treat it with all the necessary seriousness that it deserves. Otherwise, perhaps in the crafting of this movie, just as others may have said, perhaps a better suited actor could have portrayed him and that would have worked. But knowing him to be an actor as well and him funding his own film, I think he is within his own right to choose to play that role of Ibrahim Traore. But the only other concern, perhaps, which we may have to discuss on a later date, is where do we draw the line in wanting to do a film about a public figure? Are there any consequences if perhaps it doesn't augur well in terms of lawsuits or any other things? So perhaps that's a subject for discussion on another day. But these are some of the things perhaps that as filmmakers in the country we need to be very careful about before getting into a production and getting it done, doing our all the necessary checks to make that possible. But I indeed want to commend Lil Wayne for being daring to want to touch a subject or treat a subject matter that most people will not even want to go near it. So, indeed, it's very commendable of him. My only hope is that the movie will come out well and will not be a mockery of the situation in Burkina Faso, which is indeed a serious situation, but rather treat it with the necessary respect that the Ibrahim Traore as a leader and the nation of Burkina Faso and the continent of Africa deserves. So once again, we'll hope for the best, and then when the movie comes out, well, the verdict will be set for us to know what became of it. So yeah, this sums up my first story, and we'll move on to the next. So for those who have been film fans from so many years, you can never miss the name, especially if you watch a lot of Hollywood films or particularly westerns or spaghetti westerns, as it's called. You cannot be a fan of that genre and not know who this actor and director is. And I'm talking about none other than Clint Eastwood. In an article published in Variety, Clint Eastwood said that he is not done directing and he's not retiring anytime soon. So let's read the article. It was published on May 31st, and I thought this is amazing to be 95 years old and still pursuing your passion. It's amazing. And he'll be turning 95 this weekend. So Clint Eastwood plans to direct a new movie at 95. Shades era of remakes and franchises. Do something new or stay at home by Jack Dunn. So Clint Eastwood isn't slowing down anytime soon. In a recent sit-down with Austria-based publication Courier via Reuters, Eastwood, who turns 95 on Saturday, shared that he is currently in pre-production for his next film. He added that fans don't have to worry about his retirement for a long time. There's no way why a man can't get better with age, Eastwood said, and I have much more experience today. Sure, there are directors who lose their touch at a certain age, but I'm not one of them. When asked about the current state of film, the unforgiving director said he missed the days when theaters weren't overbooked and with remakes, sequels, and adaptations of existing IP. I long for the good old days when screenwriters wrote movies like Casablanca in small bungalows on the studio lot. When everyone had a new idea, he said, we live in an era of franchises, remakes and franchises. I've shot sequel 3 times, but I haven't been interested in that for a long while. My philosophy is do something new or stay at home. Eastwood went on to say that his upbringing in the old system of Hollywood forced him to constantly evolve as an artist and be vigilant for the next great movie idea. As an actor, I was still under contract with a studio, and in a studio was in the old system and thus forced to learn something new every year. Eastwood explained, and that's why I'll work as long as I can. I can still learning something new, or until I'm truly senile. So that is what Eastwood had to say about it when interviewed for his upcoming birthday 95th birthday. And it's amazing because one of the most prolific filmmakers in the past century and into this very century has been Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood. And not only does he directs, he still acts and still writes and produces his films, obviously, as well. So he's never slowed down. He's still hard at work trying to bring about innovative ideas in his films. I think his last film is Draw Number Two, which have been, making waves critically among audiences and critics alike. And it wasn't as wide a release as some of his previous films, but even with the number of theaters that it was released in, it did really make a good impact, and it looks like it's not slowing down anytime soon. But his philosophy of do something new or stay at home, I think it's not necessarily him throwing shades at the current state of the industry, particularly in America. But I think it's a personal philosophy of his to want to always be fresh with his ideas and be very intentional about his movie making career. And therefore, his philosophy being would be that if he doesn't have anything new to tell, then he'll prefer to stay at home. So basically, assume that that is his personal philosophy. Other people may interpret it in a different manner, or maybe he's just throwing shade at people. But personally, I think it's not necessarily him throwing shade at the system as it is. Yes, he did criticize the system of constant remakes and sequels, but regardless, it's still a business and people still have to tell stories, that would make enough money to keep the studio running. So I can understand the studio as well with the intention of trying to remake films that will suit the modern audience for such a purpose. So that is really interesting. But what is fascinating is the fact that even at 95, his strength has never waned. His mental faculty is still sharp and he's determined to keep on telling stories. And he even stressed on the fact that now that he's even older, he is far more experienced and is more capable of telling more important or impactful stories than perhaps he used to do. So that is quite a very optimistic director who knows what he's capable of and is willing to go the extra mile to tell more stories. As to how much more stories left to him to tell, well, it looks like there is a lot more if he has a longer life to live to tell it all. So it is quite interesting. But for this purpose, I thought that at 95, let's take this opportunity to look at a number of the films that he has made since he began. And this I can find on the the Wikipedia website, his filmography. So on your screen, we have this is the filmography of his acting roles, and he's done quite a lot. And we are talking about from 1955, that is 70 years and counting. 70 years and counting. And these are the number of films that he has done, from Revenge of the Creature, Francis in the Navy, Lady Godiva, Coventry, and Tarantula, all in 1955, right down to, let's come to 2021, where he starred in his film as in the movie that I think he himself directed, called The Cry Macho. He also directed The Mule. But among some of his powerful works that won a lot of critical acclaim and even awards or accolades is Million Dollar Baby. Yeah, so you can see it in there. And then you also have most of his films are great. Most of his films are great, but some of the films that put him on the map is I think I can't even find it here, but A Fistful of Dollars, yes, which is in 1964, and then it was followed by 1965 for A Few Dollars More, which was the sequel, and then the last but not the least in that trilogy of films is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, one of the most iconic films, especially the Mexican standoff that they had in the film. So he's done quite a volume of work. I mean, very a volume of work, and this is just his acting credits. Now let's move on to his directing credits, of which a lot of them are still part of this directing credit of his directing producing credits. So you're talking about from Play Misty for me. So he started his directing career, I mean, almost 2 decades later after he had starred in his film in his first acting role in 1955. So Play Misty for me happens to be his first film that he directed, and also along the line produced a lot of them. But majority of the films, as you can see here, he directed himself. Directed Unforgiven, which won him 2 major awards in the Oscars, and also I think he also won for the Million Dollar Baby as well. And he's done quite a number of, I mean, directed quite a number of powerful films, as you can see there. So yeah, it's quite a lot. Even J. Edgar, which wasn't really well received by the critics, but he directed Leonardo DiCaprio in that. And juror number two also have is it Nicholas Holt, who is the current Lex Luthor in the new Superman coming up in June. So there is a lot that he has done, and to have directed in 2024 and still ready to direct some movies soon, you know he's not really joking about it. So he's done quite a lot of work, executive produced some, and also some score credits as well. He's done it all. So that is how voluminous he is. As a matter of fact, he is also sang as well, which honestly, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know he also sang. And he's done all these music as well. I mean, this man is really multi-talented and faceted. So he did score some songs or did some music for a number of his films as well. A number of his films as well. So he is actually the whole package, and he's determined to make sure that he doesn't retire on his gifts. He doesn't retire on his gifts. And it's really indeed amazing. So, well, since Saturday is yet his birthday, I will take this opportunity to say happy birthday, Clint Eastwood, and thank you for your gifts, for being a blessing to some of us, for enjoying your films when we were kids. You know, you lit up a path for us that perhaps we, I mean, he may not necessarily be from our demographics, but for him being a filmmaker, he's been amazing. He's done films that are etched into my memory that I watched way back as a kid, particularly the good, the bad, and the ugly. I can never forget it. And the iconic, score for that film itself is amazing. So yeah, I mean, happy birthday to you, and we are praying that we get a lot more films from you, just as you are so willing to do some more. So yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful films you brought our way, and we'll be looking out for more from you since you are willing to offer it. Yeah. So this sums up my 2 stories for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would like to thank you for joining me for this very episode of the Film Mandate. I would like you to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below for us to take a look at, and let's talk more movies than ever before. So I'll come your way once again with the Film Mandate tomorrow with some wonderful stories as well. I'm Papa Otu. See you soon.